Welcome to Making Web3 Work, an interview series where we dive into the stories of the people harnessing decentralized technology to solve problems in local communities around the world. I'm your host, Billy Bicket, head of Accelerating Makers at TechSoup, and I'm excited to introduce today's guests. This interview is supported by an award from the Filecoin Foundation for the Decentralized Web. I remember going back and forth, Golda, about whether it was just you or you and Gitonga. Now it's both of you, so it's wonderful. So I'm excited to speak with you both about LinkedTrust and also a little bit about your backgrounds with an orientation around how we can make this conversation helpful to other makers who are building public good technology in civil society around the world. We'll try and draw out tips and guidelines and insights from your stories for our audience. And I guess the best way to kick things off is to just start with each of you introducing yourselves for the audience. We'll start with you, Golda, just a little bit about who you are, what your role is, and anything else you want to share to help our audience think of you in the right way.
Yeah, and I'm very glad there is both of us. I am an original co-founder of LinkedTrust, but I currently work for Ceramic 3Box Labs on the Ceramic Network. I am still an angel investor and advisor, and so I give Gitonga a lot of advice, but she is the one that is much more hands-on in what's happening. The vision of LinkedTrust actually started out as community building, cooperation, and it became really also a way to globally share ownership and equity in a work-weighted way, in an earned way. And we do that with the Fair Mint token. And what LinkedTrust does is works on decentralized trust, validating impact. So sort of a reputation graph on Web3 signed with DIDs, but we're not like a token Web3. We're more like a decentralized, everyone has their own reputation type of graph. But Gitonga can probably explain it better, so let you give your background.
Thank you so much, Golda. Thank you so much, Billy, for having us today. My name is Gitonga. I'm the project manager for LinkedTrust. And a little bit background about LinkedTrust. We got a chance to do events in Kibera, one of the largest slums in Africa. And when we were doing events there, I used to do research as a volunteer. And the research we had was there are more than 500 plus organizations in that area, but just getting a clean cup of water is a problem. So I come to think of it, knowing that if you check a statistic, how much is being poured with donors into that area per year, it will really shock you with the impact on the ground. And these organizations have been there for 10 years, others 20 years, and there's nothing to show. So, and that's why we came and thought about it really thoroughly, and that's why we came with this LinkedTrust to help us in validating the impact work on the ground, working with grassroots people and validating the project, creating trust in the web through a social graph. Thank you.
Awesome. So happy to see you and have you here, Gitonga. Thank you so much. You touched on, Gitonga, that moment or that scenario which surfaced this problem that you talk about, like basically this low impact scenario in some ways. That may be one way of describing it. When did that happen? And paint a picture of that moment when you realized that this is a problem you needed to dig your heels into. Or Golda, if that's more appropriate for you, feel free to jump in.
No, it was Gitonga's project, so let me let her describe it. I can pitch in, but yeah.
Yeah, okay, thank you so much once more. I got a chance to really be a volunteer for the longest time. Since I was a kid, I used to go there. We do some cleaning on the streets and some talking to young girls about gender-based violence, about menstrual period. And I went there for a long time. So the time that I was able to really know that there must be something that is going on, it's the time that we were able to do, I was able to do an event in September 2021-11 about gender-based awareness event in the area. And I was able to reach 70 young girls, and I gave them food and pads, and I came to think about it because at that point, if I could see the little I have done with the little that was there, and I really thought, what about these that have established organizations, 10 years in the area, 7 years, 5 years? What are they really doing in terms of making the area grow? And then later on, after a year, we went back again, did a project to teach 20 young girls how to swim and leadership and gender-based violence in the mix. And they got skills, and out of that, I was really fascinated that those 20, I can really tell they are good swimmers right now. At least that's impact. That's something I can show they have the skills. Huh? What about all these others? It's not about skill. It can be a water project. It can be a library project. And that is when now I realize that this is a major, major problem that we really need to have to think about it.
No, go ahead.
I just wanted to mention there was a follow-up from the swimming project with the sponsoring organization called She Can Try, and I think there's a couple girls from Kibera running a Ironman, a woman's Ironman this year in Africa. So if you look up She Can Try, I think they're training for that Ironman. So.
Yeah, they're going in August. It's in August this year.
Yeah.
Yeah. It will be in Rwanda, to be specific.
Sorry,
Yeah,
we're a little
so
far
you
afield
go
from the
and-
tech, but there's a lot of fun things.
No. Yeah. That's fair. That's fair. Well, often, as you probably have experienced in your 30 years of working in tech, Golda, the tech can sometimes come first, and that's actually a real problem, right? And so it's like, what is the experience we're building, or the problem we're orienting around from a social issue is sometimes a more helpful lens.
Right.
So people will argue, but for my money, I want to hear about the insight that builders had, and then build the story from there.
But I can tell you all about the decentralized identifiers that we use to sign it, proof mode,
Yes.
with the metadata being
Yes.
signed, and verifiable signatures, and a
so-
shared data stream, and all that stuff. We can talk about all that.
So yeah, well, so there's two parts to this, right? There's like, and the way we think about it at the Accelerating Makers program is, it's exactly this two dimensions, right? One dimension is there's a social issue that we identify that we want to address, and we want to make impact on that social issue. We want to make some change, and then there's a technology that we maybe identify that could harness or facilitate or enable that change. And so let's talk about both of those pieces, and maybe Golda, it'd be great to hear your take on the orientation around the technological solution. How did you name the problem as a technologist, and how did you attack the problem?
Sure. So, my recent experience before getting into the decentralized web space was a risk at Postmates, stopping credit card fraudsters. So it was basically almost playing a video game where you have this team, red team, blue team, and you could see them trying to organize around you, and you're organizing around them. And I realized you need a lot of rich data, and you need to know the graph, and you need to see the loops in the graph of this device is associated with 5,000 accounts. And if you just look at one account with this device, looks okay, but when you realize that device is paired with 5,000 accounts, that doesn't make any sense. People don't order pizza that way. So you have to see the bigger patterns. So how can you do that without having like a giant company owning everything? And how can you do that on the positive side of validating impact? So to me, using decentralized identifiers to let people have the independence to sign a verifiable credential that it doesn't have to be a actually verifiable credential, but something like a verifiable credential is one step, but then you have to see the links between them, and they have to have connections to each other. And also, I'm not like a Web3 first person. I'm like, well, we need to just have the information of, is this valid? So maybe we'll scrape a site and get a bunch of information, and that will all be signed by the spider who scraped it, and it will link to the source of that site. And then maybe there will be an attestation that that site was made by this person at that date, and somebody will sign that. And then that links to this person's reputation, because that's how we think, right? I mean, I trust stuff that you would tell me because I know you. That's how I really think about stuff. So trying to create a system that can get all those signals, but then, I really get tired of people when I was interviewing for the Blue Sky, kind of talking to people in the Blue Sky space and get whether people should really be appropriate to join that space. there were a lot of people who were like, oh, I solved all the problems. It's my thing. Everyone should just join it. And I'm like, no, that is not the right approach because everybody cannot separately be the center of the universe. So we have to have a way that we're sharing a data stream. And even though I work for Ceramic, I do think that these ceramic data streams are a good solution for that. Holochain could also be a solution. There's a couple other solutions that are out there. And so we're kind of agnostic to that at LinkedTrust, but we do put them on the ceramic streams which anybody can consume. So you have this kind of shared stream of things that are signed by decentralized identifiers, but they might have been scraped from Web 2 and signed by a spider. So it's kind of this combination of Web 2 and Web 3 data, and you can get this rich graph about the things. And then, then on top of that, you want to make some kind of prediction of was this impact real, and that's kind of the last step in it, which is you make that prediction and you score it. And but the first step is really enabling people to validate those impacts. And I think, Gitonga, you could talk about the flow that we've been working on, that we've also been working on with the U.S. Chambers of Commerce with that project, where one person makes an attestation and someone attests to it. Or do you need to interrupt me, Billy, because I'm going?
No. I want to go right there, and I also want to go to a granular level of that user experience with the system at that level. Yeah.
Yeah, do you want to talk to that, Gitonga? And maybe also in the context of skills, because that's where we've been working on it with the T3. I'll let you take that away.
When it comes to T3, the use case is in terms of work, in terms of it's related to skills, and whereby if the students and the students looking for internships can get their skill asserted by their instructors, and they can also self-assert their skills and send a link to the instructor to endorse their skills. So that is what we are doing in T3.
Yeah, so it's really a similar flow to where you say, hey, I am making a claim that I know how to write Python. I'm making a claim that I helped with $500, I helped 7 people in Kibra. I'm making a claim about something. So I make the claim, I click on something which signs the claim with however I'm logged in, and it gives the claim an address. Now the claim is sitting somewhere with an address, and I can actually take that address, it's just a URI, and email it to somebody, or give it to them, or send it to them on chat, or whatever. It's a URI. They can click on it, and not only that address, they can then click verify when it comes up, and then they can actually endorse it, and then their claim points to it. So now we've got 2 claims. We're building the web, where there's the one that is, hey, I did this thing, and then there's this other guy who says, hey, that thing, it's true, or that thing, it's not true, or that thing, it helped me. And you get people able to make that attestation. And then that guy has an ID, and somebody else can point to him and say, hey, that guy, he is legit, or that guy, he has a GitHub badge, or whatever it is about that guy. He earned $7,000 on Upwork, or whatever.
Some reputation data.
Some reputation thing about him that might be completely unrelated to that first claim. But it's like, that guy did something real. He says that claim is true. Now I believe it.
Got it. And then how did we go from, tell us the story of, connecting 2 threads. One, how did Golda, you're in Arizona, Golda,
yes,
is that right?
Tucson.
Golda in Tucson and Gitonga in Nairobi. How did you 2 sync up? And then how does the users we're referencing in, I believe it is in Nairobi, how are they syncing up with the system and interfacing with the system to make claims?
Right. So when I first started the company, we didn't have any money, so I would just put an ad on angel.co, which I don't know if that's the one you saw or if you saw a different one. I put a few ads out like, hey, does anybody want to work for Equity and Skills? So she came originally as a volunteer for Equity, and then I was like, okay, you're really good, and do you want to do some of the engineering? And so she started doing that.
Amazing. Okay. Cool. And Gitonga, what about the implementation of the system on the ground? How did you go from building the system to implementing it, integrating it, and kind of enabling adoption on the ground?
One thing is awareness. When the slum is very populated and densely populated, and usually when I used to have those talks, I used to really challenge them to do courses related to tech and get to understand what it means to have a cell phone, get to use a computer, because in those slums there are some which have they have computer centers set up by some organizations. So I really encourage them to go there, try to use their system and explain to them what you're trying to do. And with that, that is how it kept on going, yeah.
Amazing. So you used the existing infrastructure that was in place, the community infrastructure, if you will. You then hosted an event or series of events to elevate awareness further. And do you keep that sort of cycle of events as a way of establishing a drumbeat in the community and enrolling the community to give feedback on the program? How does that work?
Okay, mostly what usually happens is that I go for feedback session. Most of the time when I hold events, I talk about, I really have feedback sessions because they really help me in knowing what to do and how to approach things the next time when I'm trying to do something. And one thing is that the slum has a lot of young people who are very idle, sorry to put it that way. So when you come up with something, everyone is so curious to know what is going on and what is going to benefit them, and that's how now I've been able to really tell them like this, and yeah.
Yeah, but that also, like, even though they might be idle, they need some support. So I noticed that you on the event we had, she made sure to send everybody home with 1 day of food going back. So if they had spent a day not looking for food, they had some going back from that event. And so we didn't pay them a lot, but they went back with, what was it, a bag of, I don't know, was it rice or what was it that you sent them back with?
It was rice, maize flour, sugar, and sanitary towels, 2 packs each. And they had lunch, and they had something to eat, snacks, yeah.
Yeah, so they were very happy to do that.
Yeah.
And that way
At
you
least
get the
you know,
education. Mm-hmm.
Exactly, and then now you get to really entice them to come so that they can get the information, because some will not get the opportunity to come if they cannot be able to get anything because they have to go look for food for their families. So when you capture their attention, and then at their free time, they can be able to really be interested in terms of heading to the computer center, knowing how to use computers, because some of them don't even know how to operate a computer or even a cell phone. And it's not their fault, so yeah. At least it's get them exposed.
So it's like sorry to speak over you. Go on.
It's just fine.
So you built this sort of incentive / positive reinforcement mechanism with food for program participants, and that's a good segue to sort of the impact story with fundraising. So I want to get into a little bit about current state of fundraising, how you've kind of captured impact to date, what you're learning in that journey, because we know how complex and difficult it is, and then we can talk. We can unpack it a little bit. But tell us what.
I can share a little bit, because I know we did some fundraising, which was really through Gitonga and I's personal connections that we had. But we had another example that happened in Jarablis, northern Syria, where we were separate from this. We kind of helped fund a little human rights group, and the guy there was in northern Syria, where he's one of the people who left Aleppo, and then there was the earthquakes, and so it's a really kind of a no man's land there in northern Syria. And he was able to make connection with a charity called Voice of a Child. And they funded a training center that trained 18 young men and 18 young women on sort of basic computer skills, so they could try to get some, basically opportunities to work remotely or to be able to do something. And we actually have attestations from the students about the training. A number of them are in Arabic, but I can show you, because they were also studying English, but some of them made them in English and some of them made them in Arabic. But they each so we basically made a claim about the work that Voice of a Child did. They donated $6,000 to fund this program. And so we made a claim. Voice of a Child donated $6,000.
It's all transparent.
Right, and then those, yeah, and we did some things on an open collective, but that particular one wasn't on an open collective. It was just a donation. And then the students just, they don't have a lot of computer skills, but they had just taken a computer course, so we were able to send them that validation URI. They click on it, they log in. I'm actually not sure. I'd have to check if some of them used MetaMask and some of them may have used username and password login, which gives them a custodial DID. But either way, they still had a separate login, a separate account, and then they logged in and they gave an attestation about that training. So, basically our thesis is that if you say you helped 36 people, we collected, I don't know how many, but maybe 15 attestations. We didn't get them from all 36 people because we didn't put it in a system at the beginning of the class. We kind of did it after the class. Right. But if you say you helped 1,000 people, you should be able to get hundreds of attestations. If we say we helped 36 people, we should be able to get at least 15 different attestations from people. And so that's kind of the bar that we want to put, and we want to make that kind of into a standard for fundraise for the funders. And what I think that'll do is it'll enable funders to work with smaller grassroots organizations, which right now they won't do because they don't have enough time to vet them. So they work with these much larger organizations, but then a lot of the money just has to be used in salaries for people running the large organizations. And if you want to go to these very, very low overhead organizations on the ground where even the salaries are only being paid to people on the ground, which is also helping the community, you have to have some way to validate the work in a sort of automated way. And so that's what this is intended to do.
So, but this raises the question about your customer for the system and who subsidizes the whole experience, and what's philanthropy and what's a service.
Right. Right now, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation is giving us a grant to work on it in terms of the skill attestations, because they're very interested in skill attestations. Luckily, that is some of the same fundamental technology that works for impact validations. I think really I would like the funders to be paying for it, but I also don't want it to be expensive. So I'm hoping that we can get enough grants to create the process so that there's a turnkey system, which is low overhead, and in the very long-term future, there may be some type of a data token economy that will carry it long-term at scale. But right now, yes, to ramp up, we do need to pursue grants for the funding, and then maybe funding funders. There's a thing about biodiversity validation. There's stuff about traceability validation, which is enforced by regulatory pressure. So we're hoping to use the same technology to do things that are
for different use cases.
And they're business imperatives, because if you want to sell in the European Union, you have to show that you have done this traceability work. And there's this carbon credit markets that were completely fake, and we want to reform those. And so we think we can use the same technology to do those different things and make it very cheap for the charities.
Golda, you've been doing this work for a couple of decades or more. You've seen different business models and cycles come and go on the internet. And now you're in this very, very complex world of public good technology where there's no capital model the way there is in VC world or industry, right? So I'd love to hear how you parse these kinds of projects as a technologist, as an angel, for the elevator pitch for the executive directors. Getting funding for technology projects is like, where do I even start?
Right.
How do I even shape programming to support the technology? What comes first? The platform or the use case kind of thing. Just it'd be great to just hear your riff on this very complex world of public good technology, building, funding, deploying, and working with people on the ground in many cities without a business model.
Right. Well, I thought about just having kind of a fake front with some Web3 dude who looks Web3 and trying to get some money about some fake thing. But I decided not to do that, even though I think it's possible.
Actors, hiring an actor,
But I realized that to be who we are, which is fairly complex and rooted in all these different things, we have to be very scrappy, because the big investors, their attention span is 30 seconds, and once I said some things that didn't make sense, so risky, no, not going to go. Once we have over, I think one friendly investor told me over 50,000 a month revenue, then they'll talk to us because they can tell we're real because of dollar signs. So we have to be very scrappy. And also, I don't want to take the philanthropy funds for ourselves. That's part of the whole point, is that we don't want to be saying, oh, look at those people suffering, give me money. I don't want to be one of those people who is doing that. Though on our behalf, we actually hire people in all these locations. Gitonga is not in Kibera, but she's in Nairobi, and it's not easy there either sometimes. We hire people in locations where there's not a lot of opportunity. But we have to provide value now to somebody who has money. And so we have been pursuing contracts. We have one contract with the government of British Columbia for doing some standards work. We have a contract with the U.S. Chambers of Commerce Foundation, and both of those are resulting in open source code. And we are very actively pursuing other collaborative grants and contracts in areas where money is available, and just basically trying to produce this open platform at the same time, which is kind of the long-term value. And at the same time, we're sharing tokenized equity. We are a public benefit corporation. We're not a nonprofit. And everyone on the company earns equity and governance. And we just had kind of a fun exercise where we did a random lottery that was work-weighted to be on the steering committee for this month to spend our profits.
Unpack the work-weighted term for
yeah,
folks who might not know what that
I'd love to share my screen. Basically,
please.
Oh, okay. We actually literally just had this kind of really fun event this morning where we had a little bit of profits. And these are the people who have earned work-weighted equity. And we have a task tracker, and you can only earn equity by having it on a peer-reviewed task. Now, I've been here from the beginning, and I do have the most cook of anybody because I was there, from 2019 onward, and I've done a lot of work on it. But everyone in the company has some of these things, and so they have this amount of cook. And so we basically rolled a dice over the total of these numbers, and then we said, where did it fall among these numbers? Like if it had fallen at 12,000, it would have fallen in this row. And when we rolled the dice, we took out some of the people who aren't active in the company right now, because some of these folks aren't active right now. We rolled the dice, and it fell in Ahmed's row. So he is now on the committee for this month to spend our profits, and people in the company have to make proposals. And the three people who we rolled the dice to be on that committee are deciding which proposals for our little bit of profits we're going to spend. Most of our money has to be spent on the stuff we've agreed to do because we have contracts and we have to do those things. But we make profit on those, and then that profit can be decided by the people in the group.
Gitonga, in your experience, were you experienced with this kind of organizational model previously, or is this new to you, this way of working and being in cooperation with people all around the world?
It is new to me because I joined immediately after I came out from school, because I went in a boot camp actually. I stayed there for 6 months. Then after, that's
like
how
a coding
I joined
boot camp?
cooking. Yeah, a coding boot camp. I got a scholarship to do software development in a coding boot camp for 6 months.
Okay. What was the name of the boot camp?
Moringa School.
Moringa School.
So,
like moringa the vegetable?
Moringa? Yeah, moringa the vegetable. Yeah, the vegetable,
Okay. Very cool.
Yes, so I was very new to this type of organization, but I was able to really maneuver around.
And now, what's it like for you? How do you
so
express
happy.
what you do to your friends? How do they make sense of your life?
I'm so happy, and it's really exposed me to a lot of things. I've really been able to be well outspoken, and I can be able to reach out to you and tell you about my idea, and it sinks into your mind and thoughts and everything. And then also the opportunity to go for a conference. I was able to go for a conference in Dubai, being the first time traveling outside the country, and meeting so many different people and telling them about LinkedTrust was one of my happiest moment. I've never been in such a place. Yeah. So I don't take it for granted. I'm so grateful. Yeah.
That's amazing. Tell us, we're gonna wrap up and turn the corner on the last couple of questions now, because it's getting late for you, Gitonga, and I promised that this would be a short conversation, but it feels like I can talk to you for many hours, but we have to go shortly. So here's a couple of last questions. One, tell us what the big hairy problem you're working on right now together as a team that you're trying to solve. It can be technical, it could be not technical, but how do you characterize like that big hairy problem you're trying to solve right now as a team?
One of the biggest problem right now, when I think about it, is we want to really improve our system. That's one of the things we really need, and also we need to, as we go, want to integrate so many things, so many features. One of the features we want to integrate is cryptographic signed photos. That is what we want to integrate. So I guess that's the biggest problem for now. And what kind of help we need? Maybe funding to do that. I think that is one thing. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I would echo that integration, and it's probably this constant tension between, we have limited resources. Everybody's, rushing to do things. And the tension between do something small, fast, and specific and put it out the door, but then it will never be reusable. And let's design it so that it fits with the other systems, so it fits with the common flow, and making sure everyone's kind of aligned on that. What is that minimal part that can be in common between all the projects? And how do we do this really nicely so it's reusable, so things play into each other? That's the nut to crack, I think. And I think how we can be helped is exactly what you're doing right now, which is helping to tell the story, helping to get the messages out, and helping to highlight those core little pieces, which can be the common underpinnings, the protocols that can tie things together. So I appreciate that help, and maybe we'll continue clarifying it. I know we kind of went all over the place in the interview, but follow the links and you'll see what is that one core vocabulary piece that we call linked claims that will tie it all together.
That's excellent. And, in the spirit of software as a process and the spirit of collaboration as a process, we can't boil the ocean in a single conversation, right? About this stuff. So we need to stay in conversation and be in conversation. And if we didn't cover something that you want to cover or speak to, now's your chance. And tell us how people can follow you and stay in touch.
Great. Well, the main website is LinkedTrust.us. There's also a website where we talk just about the public things, which is cooperation.org. That one's pretty easy to remember. Just remember cooperation.org, and you can kind of follow your nose from there. LinkedTrust.us is the main site where the LinkedTrust and linked claims is being represented. So those would be the main places. We are on all the socials. LinkedIn is probably where we post the most, actually, right now.
Okay. So nice to spend time with you both. Thank you for thank you for sharing your story and being so so brave and courageous to pursue something so difficult.
No, thank you, and thank you for. I just love working with you, really, and your group. So thanks for all the continued support. And you came over to me at DWebCamp and you're like, hey, we should talk about things. And I remember that. I was like, oh, this is important. I'm glad I stayed around while we were packing.
That was the last, we were packing up. I'm so glad I met you too. Last mile.
Right,
who knows?
right.
You never know when you're going to meet someone, right? Very cool. So good to spend time with you, Golda. So good to see you, Gitonga. And please, anytime we can be of help or support, don't hesitate to shout out to us. So nice to spend time with you.